Okay, Hal.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Another fun and joyful day.
Good.
Monday on Tuesday?
Is it Friday yet?
Close.
Go ahead and introduce yourself. Just for the
Hal
record.
Jensen, Planning Director, Bannock County. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to review budget for 2023 fiscal year. Two items that have occurred since we talked last. I came in, we discussed the issues of joining the Builders Association, etc. So we added some money to take care of those dues and other fees that accompany that, and you have my budget beyond that in front of you. That has been amended and added to this sheet, that additional $1,500 from the last time that we spoke, and so if you have questions for me, I know that there are issues and discussions relative to salaries, potential increases, other items that are in the equation. The three that I am specifically looking for this year are to bring salaries commensurate with other departments, and we're even at the increases that I've requested for the two assistant planners and the planner, is still very much behind what you see in the general overall pay scales of planners and assistant planners in other departments in similar sized counties, populations, as well as similar sized departments. That is something that I'm asking for. I don't know how that fits into the equation with everything else that you've been discussing. Those are my biggest requests. Everything else is pretty much commensurate.
On the salaries, did you just do dollar amounts and you just want us to fit?
Correct.
Or are there, okay. So
Correct.
for us to keep them on the scale, we would just find a grade that's within that vicinity?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason being, Christy, is that for me, this is new, and I did not go down that path and ask the appropriate questions. I took the lazy approach.
Did you run these through Ryan?
Pardon?
Did you run these through Ryan?
Yes.
And he agreed?
We didn't have any agreement. His comment was, please put them in your budget as a suggestion,
Okay.
and let's see where it goes.
Okay.
And some of these numbers have been derived from a conversation with Ryan based upon his research as well. I'm assuming that you have seen his matrix of his homework relative to salary structures of commensurate.
So the two assistant planners,
Pardon?
a different wage?
Yeah, one, we're in the process of rewriting, Commissioner Moser, the descriptions. One would be, we would change the descriptions from assistants planners to planner 1, planner 2, and planner.
Okay,
Or
so the
senior
titles
planner.
would change.
That is correct, as well as some of the respective tasks that go. Shall we say, the planner 2 would actually have more responsibilities relative to
Okay.
items. So that's also built into my plan, as I've discussed with Ryan, about succession in the department. People are being trained to understand the next step, and so as positions do potentially come open, staff that is currently employed could move forward into those positions. Okay?
Okay.
With ultimately a particular employee that is now there could potentially, when she finishes her master's degree in public administration, would have not only experience, time, but also a paper credential to become the next director of the department.
Okay.
On your computer budget, computer programs,
Yes, sir.
is that big decrease because you're dropping off the current system that you're using?
Correct. Right now we basically have two programs. One that we're getting ready to introduce, which was a very successful meeting yesterday, by the way, Commissioner Huff. We now have, sorry for the sidebar, we now have CityWorks in place. We are spending the next week running through mock scenarios to see what we can come up with and start fleshing out any potential problems. Come effective October 1, we are pretty confident now, after having that introduced yesterday, that we'll be able to drop the other one and not worry. And IT has been in the process of backing up our data from the old program.
Okay.
So that's what's going to take place there. When we met in our roundtable discussion, I mentioned that there was potential of $30,000 savings from last year's budget to this coming budget. That still holds somewhat true within that general dollar value.
Okay.
So within that, how much did you budget for City Works? 14.5?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, just making
I
sure.
believe, Christie, that is our dollar amount for our component.
Okay. That's what I had. I'm just trying to verify that everybody's paying their part so that we're not short.
I'll be more than glad to have other departments pay for mine. No problem. I'll let that get snuck in there. How's that? The other item that I've worked with staff is that the department for years has had planning, building, and engineering, all of those components on a yearly basis go for training. So I will share with you some things that I introduced to staff and suggested that this is the direction that they go for cost savings. Like the building official and the building inspector are required to have 8 learning units every 3 years. And they were going to Las Vegas every year for training for a week, which gives them 40 learning units in an entire week. And, we're doing that year after year after year. And I know this is going to sound terrible to say this, but it's almost like we pay to have a vacation to Vegas every year, and that was giving me some heartburn. So what I've incorporated is that we now have a cycle that every 3rd year, planners go, building goes, staggered, et cetera. So that instead of having a $15,000 travel and education budget, we're now down to $5,000 or $7,000 that works for the respective training that are required to keep their credentials for their positions. So that's another place that we made some savings as well.
Could you talk to me about the $5,000 for your transcription and P&D minutes and stuff? What's that all about?
I did. So one of the items that we did, we pulled that back a bit ago in regards to years past, because that used to be completely outsourced. When Corinne left, and then we made some changes, and Elise Foster took the position as assistant planner, she assumed some additional roles between engineering and planning, and that allowed Tristan a little bit more flexible time. And so we pulled back the dollar amount that we were sending out for transcription, and Tristan was taking care of that. We're starting to find that our workload, and especially with the fact that we want to accomplish in this next year the subdivision rewrite ordinance, as well as planning, zoning ordinance, and that's going to consume a huge amount of time. So in this next year, our recommendation in this budget is to move transcription back out to free Tristan's opportunities and time for taking care of that rewrite. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
That's the logic there.
And I know we talked about this yesterday, but he's only budgeting an extra $1,000 for fuel, and so we're gonna watch that and see, but I just asked the question again, is that enough? Because I filled up my truck last night and it was $100, and
You have a small tank.
yeah, that hurt me.
Try a Yukon at 165.
Yeah, I told the wife, don't fill the Yukon up unless you drive the Subaru. You don't drive the Yukon right now.
Anyway, I think this is a very fair and commensurate budget for what our department needs to make us function the way we need to. I don't think that there's, over the years since I have had this position, I've worked very diligently in taking out a lot. It was a new and a different experience for me to understand a governmental budget, but I will share with you that there was a lot of what if that was built into the budget that we've that we've slowly worked through together as a team on what we should or we shouldn't have, and it works out much better. I will share with you that I have 2 members of staff that raise their eyebrows at me that I have pinched a couple of things as tight as I have.
Well, it is very much appreciated. And then, like we've told others, we are looking at wages and what we can and can't do, and we want to take care of our employees.
The other item to mention is that I have focused this year on 3 staff members, which are basically on the planning side. Depending on what happens next year, I would then approach the commission relative to the administrative assistant, the building official, and the building inspector, as we would look to adjust their salary structures to be more commensurate with what goes on in other departments of like size, as well as I stated before, similar size counties. Okay? Any questions, any items?
Good.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that being said,